how did Dangerous Demos at TAD Summit start? Well, following the 2013 Bangkok TAD Summit, we came to the conclusion that it's actually quite difficult for people who've got Telecom's application platforms to demonstrate these unless you've got some form of underlying network. So in a moment of madness, I said to Alan, you know what, I think we can probably build you a mobile network so you can demonstrate stuff. And Alan went sort of, I bet you can't. And I said, I think we can. And so we put together a team of likely suspects to do that, consisting of, we took an open source IMS core from Metaswitch, that's Project Clearwater, some Telestacks application infrastructure, RESTCOM, yeah, good old RESTCOM. And we ran the whole thing up within OpenStack on Ubuntu, and then plugged the whole lot into a TruePhone backend so that that mini network became a real live piece of infrastructure. And we executed that in Istanbul, and blow me, it just worked, and it went down quite well. In fact, everybody in the room seemed to think it was really quite good, apart from the two gentlemen from Ericsson sitting in the front row who thought it was very, very bad, and I can't think why. So after that little success, we then thought for 2015 in Lisbon, we're going to extend that a little bit. So we added in a whole load of extra applications. So from players like DataArt, who did a plethora of amazing demos on top of this platform. We had tiny little companies like Oracle playing, Matrix always playing, always game for a laugh, Matrix, and a cast of thousands, all doing more bits and pieces on this infrastructure. And again, luckily, most of it appeared to work. So let's move forward to 2016. What are we going to do in 2016 to beat 2015? Well, we've got a full program of bits and pieces. One of the big things we're going to do this year, which is extremely dangerous, and I'm looking over there, so there's some very nervous people over on that side of the room. We're going to demonstrate some live radio access network using some software based radios. So that probably will work, I hope. It'll be the first time that I think it's been demonstrated in this configuration live. Oh, and we'll find out more about that later. So, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Michael from DataArt, who's going to start the first sequence.
Yes. I don't know whether that's live or not. Not quite yet. We'll get it.
Oh, and by the way, if anything goes wrong, we've learned from last year's experience where I ended up being rather exposed on the stage when everything went horribly wrong. So this year, we've got a distinguished panel of experts up here. So if anything goes wrong, like in a football match, you know, somebody gets injured, we'll just talk about something whilst people down there try and fix it. And do we have to talk already?
Just getting set up.
Yeah, adrenaline levels are rising. We have an outline schedule for this with times we're going to aim for. But as they say, no plan survives contact with the enemy, so we're subject to change. Yeah, filling a little bit more. DataArt, experts in application development. Believe it or not, planning for this dangerous demo started about 4 months ago. We've been having, but as usual, about 60% of the content actually came together in the last 2 days. Are we ready?
We are ready.
Okay, over.
Good morning. Sorry for the delay. Literally, this is coming together in the last second. There's several pieces of this, and like any good dangerous demo, anything and everything that could go wrong has. So what we're going to start off with today is more of a business scenario, and then we'll break into the technology a little bit later. So this is about a usability and how this technology can actually be turned into something that people would want to consume and purchase. And there's lots of different components as we go through it. So the scenario is today that of a business traveler. I happen to use myself a model for some of these scenarios. I don't know about anyone else in the room, but I really dislike getting phone calls every time I leave my home time zone, in the middle of the night from people just not realizing where I am in the world. So we have a application that will show that can do call interception and redirection, and then you can also whitelist. So if friends or family, you want to let the call go through, you're able to do that while still blocking other people without needing to turn off your phone or disable all alarms and then missing meetings in the morning. The second portion of it that we'll go through is a situation which is also real world. We just had it with one of my colleagues who came here today, where when you're traveling out of town and not feeling well. So we've adapted a telemedicine scenario where you can actually get some diagnostics and figure out whether you're really sick and should come home or go to a local hospital, or if it's not a big deal at all. And then the third one is again, many of us do, at least I do. Sometimes you're traveling to unfamiliar areas and you don't know where to go or what to do and what's safe and what's not. So using a couple of interesting technologies, we're going to showcase a safety application which can alert you if certain images are picked up in the area. I should start by saying some of my colleagues wanted to bring in order to demonstrate the technology, a few things like fake guns and fake grenades. And I just thought trying to bring that into the airport would be a very bad idea. So we decided in settling on just other images. We'll walk you through that. And then afterwards we do that, we'll have a chance to talk about some of the underlying technologies that are going through it. So the first piece, it's washed out a little bit on the screen, but you're a traveler, and you're just going to register for these services before you go on your merry little way. So it's a simple little web page. It's just asking me for my name and my phone number, and then I can pick the services that I want to subscribe to. And so I'm going to do that right now, and I'll pick the microphone back up. Take 1 second. That's where it goes. So as I mentioned, we have time zone management, medical assistance, and safety update service. So I'm just going to subscribe to those. Okay. And so just get a pop-up, and thank you for registering for the service. Out of that goes through. So going along, so what starts to happen then is you're traveling, as I mentioned, and you might start getting some phone calls. So if you look at my profile right here, right, it has my home time zone, and as well as where I am right now, right, and a blocked area. We've obviously shifted this to be more appropriate for the dangerous demo versus say 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. Hopefully the concept conveys. I'm just going to make a phone call into it. Hopefully we'll have some audio.
Not available now. If you would like to leave message, press 1.
Was it people able to hear that?
I will recall you.
Okay. So then, pretty straightforward. That's the message that comes through. We could actually leave a message if we wanted to on that. Let me terminate that.
Just run through that sequence again.
Right, so if you didn't hear it, so again, someone's making a phone call now.
I'm not available now. If you would like to leave message, press 1.
Okay, so the option of sending through and leaving a message or not in doing it.
I will recall you.
Okay. So gives you now, if you wake up in the morning, realize you have missed calls that you have to go through and deal with, right? What you can do is say, I need to whitelist these people because next time I do want to call, or obviously you could do it in advance before you leave. Pretty straightforward stuff. We can go through, right? And just add the user. And again, Twitch? Sorry. Oh, we can. Sorry, what I'd gone through is I'd gone through and added a contact into the whitelist. It's on the screen. So we just added a user to call me. And again, now with doing that, when the person calls through, so difference in a blocked phone call and an unblocked phone call based upon a whitelist. Pretty straightforward. Okay. So again, just demonstrating a practical application. You have some call interception going on, call redirection. You can obviously build on top of this. And again, we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the technology that comes out of it. So that's the first scenario and going through it. The second scenario, which we hope you find interesting as well, is when you, especially when you have a dangerous demo, you get a little stressed out. And so I am going to contact my doctor. All right, so now you just saw one, we had some phone calls, there's lots of media stuff that's going into this, but obviously interactions here, so. So I'm answering here, I don't feel well or I feel sick.
It's all that adrenaline, isn't it? All that stress.
Right, so you saw some chatbots and everything. We know we talked about it. So, right. So we rephrase it, re-answer it. So describe your symptoms. So the second one is definitely from the bar last night. All right. So you can describe some symptoms to them. Right, so the idea is it asks some interactive questions, trying to make a diagnosis. This is, again, for people who saw part of this, you know, there was some of this yesterday, right? So it's going through, it can't determine what's going on. It says, do you want to actually talk to a doctor live, or do you want to talk to a doctor and it's going to come back through? And it knows that it knows that I'm traveling, so it's offering me an immediate consultation now or appointments in the future. Right, so I can say, no, I'm pretty sure I want to do it right now. Because, as James said, these can be stressful demos.
Yeah, so what is being demonstrated here is completely an escalation,
Right.
changing the mode of communication from text to something else.
And so what's happened is come back and it's brought me to the telehealth health application. I can log in. All right, and I can start my appointment.
So, Michael, you're looking not very well, I have to say. Must be the stress.
So now Yuri has decided to be my doctor for me today. So he's very pleasant. So I told him he can tell me anything other than, you know, I'm not going to make it. So, but the idea is, again, you have some context aware, some location aware services, multiple modes of communication. You know, again, we had a colleague, and this is true, came last night, or came the first night to this, and she was taken ill, and so she missed the first day and a half of the event. And obviously, if she'd been able to do a video conference with the doctor, may have been told her what medicine to get to turn around and come home. So we view this as, again, something commercial, something that has a commercial value if put into the right context out of it. So thank you, Yuri.
So I don't know what the treatment was, but you're looking much better now.
I feel much better now in going through it. So the last bit of it mentioned, I also subscribe to a security service. So what has been going on here in a bit of the background is that you might not be able to see it, but we have a little high definition camera right behind here that's actually taking feeds in from different areas, right? So continuously in the background, it's been scanning Gennady as an image, and Gennady has volunteered to be our bad guy for today. But again, this is something that could be a feed or a tap in. We're showing this in real time, so it goes through. And ideally, when there's image recognition going on, and when it sees something that has been told not to like or is a threat assessment, if you would go ahead and do it. Now, please remember, I talked these people out of bringing, fake guns and fake grenades, so this seemed to be a decent compromise out of doing it. And what we see right here is ski mask has been detected.
Oh my God.
Right. And so immediately an alert service goes off. I apologize which phone I'm on, so I don't know if you want to get a picture of that. All right. So the idea of this, again, just, quite frankly, is with a mobile edge computing, what's really interesting about this last one is that people can start classifying their own images. There's a lot of different areas and this could be used for. So obviously there's threat identification. Quite frankly, there's shoplifting would be a very common one where if a store owner or the police have pictures of shoplifters, they can upload those images. People could subscribe to that service, right? And then if they're adding their own images on top of it, the service that, from crowdsourcing could actually get a little more useful in intelligence versus being centralized out of it. So this is just, again, one application of using communications and image recognition going on at the same time. Martinez had a good example of it as well, that if something like this is used in, say, elevators, people walk into an elevator and maybe put a ski mask on or pull out a gun, maybe the elevators stop, right, and alert the authorities automatically. Or if someone falls and has, collapses in an elevator or in a stairway, people not moving, it's a recognizable item. So I can't say these are mine. These are Martin's examples, but these are the types of, this could be used for, and then alerts are triggered that are based off of it. So the idea is that you push this out as far as you can to the edge. So those are the three scenarios that we wanted to cover as just applications. Now talk a little bit more about the different technologies. As you saw, there's multi-modes of communications that went on here. We have image recognition that's going on here. But the centralized theme about this is making it consumable, making it easy to subscribe to. Obviously integrating it with a billing service where I could turn on and say, yes, I'll buy this for 5 days, or I'll buy this for the duration of my trip. And you can add more and more services to this as people come up with good and interesting ideas on it. So those were the three scenarios that we wanted to walk through. We'll be returning to some of them a little bit later when we come back to the small cells and the different areas. At this point, I will turn it over.
Okay, thank you for that, Michael. So that's an interesting little combination. There's a lot you can do here just by inserting an agent between the user and the network. So I think this is a theme we're going to see more and more of. There's these network-based applications that allow you to pick up information from the outside world and then trigger things on your own device.